Hello, a very good morning to you. This is the Agri-News review, and today is 27th of November 2023. We have only 3 days to end the year, and I hope that we have only 3 days to end the month, actually, and I hope you are actually achieving some of the targets you set for the month. It's the Agri-News review, and on this show, we review the major stories in the agricultural sector. And today we'll be reviewing 3 major stories that's making headlines in agriculture. The first story has to do with the EU setting tough terms for cocoa trade amid deforestation alert in Africa. The second story we'll be reviewing is Senegal women advocating for climate justice ahead of the COP28 summit that will be happening in Dubai. And the third story has to do with the fact that Professor Okwe says we will continue to go to the IMF until we develop agriculture. So I'll be analyzing this news or these headlines with Gideon Ayete. He's an agric economist and with the University of Ghana, Legon. Let's go for a short break. When we come back, we'll delve into the discussion. Stay tuned. Hello, welcome back from a short commercial break, and this is still the Agri-News review on Agri-News TV. This review is sponsored by TIAS Group and KAIST. So moving right into the discussion to discuss the first story that's making headlines in agriculture. But before that, I would like to acknowledge and make you know that the Farmers' Day is starting today. That's the Farmers' Day celebration. It's starting today. It will be climaxed on December 1st. That is coming Friday. So it is a month or it is a week that the government sets aside to appreciate farmers who are doing well when it comes to agriculture. So last year we saw the National Best Farmer winning the award, where it was held in the Eastern region. Well, this week we want to find out who is going to win this particular award, and it will be happening on December 1st in the Western region of Ghana. All right, Gideon, we are going to be discussing the major news making the headlines. The first one has to do with the EU setting tough terms for cocoa trade amid deforestation alert. But let me quickly read the story. It is on Agri-Rich's website, so you could get all these updates on Agri-Rich's. It says that in the move to combat global deforestation, the delegation of the European Union to Ghana, represented by Raphael Korto, has issued a stern warning to cocoa producing nations in Africa. The directive declares that nations facing deforestation challenges will no longer be able to export cocoa to the EU market. This directive, a result of a law passed by the European Parliament, extends to various industries including cocoa, cattle, coffee, palm oil, rubber, soy, and wood. Companies engaged in these sectors must demonstrate that their products are not sourced from deforested land or land with forest degradation. Companies involved in cocoa exports are specifically required to submit due diligence reports that outlines the key steps to verify the origins of their products, ensuring they comply with local regulations on human rights and respect the rights of indigenous people. So this was made known at a set international trade show and conference in Accra. And this is what the EU is saying, that countries that are facing deforestation will no longer be able to export cocoa to the international market, as the European Union market. And that is due to the fact that they want to promote afforestation. They want to avoid global deforestation, because we are in a world or in an era where climate change is actually an issue. Gideon, this is what the EU is saying, that countries facing deforestation won't be able to export to the EU markets. What do you have to say to this?
Yes, so good morning to your viewers once again. And the EU's, this European Union's directive to African countries who are into cocoa production reflects the increasing awareness in the global space about sustainability in agriculture. And cocoa production over the years have been linked to deforestation, particularly in West Africa. So this is a directive to the African nations. We want to protect the environment. There is the call for us to preserve or conserve the environment. So we shouldn't practice or go into activities in the name of producing cocoa whilst at the expense of our environment. So protect your environment, particularly with deforestation. Don't source your cocoa product or cocoa beans from lands which are deforested. Okay, we want them to be virgin lands, we want them to be forestry, we want them to be fresh, we want them to be sustainable. Okay. So it's a directive for African nations or countries who are into cocoa production, so that they will be able to conserve the environment. So it's a right call to action.
All right, what's the benefits of this when it comes to cocoa sustainability?
So for the cocoa sustainability, the first benefit of it from my point of view is that our environment is going to be preserved. Okay. Because there is going to be transparency in cocoa production in such a way that our environments are going to be protected. And deforestation, one of the key socioeconomic factors which can be linked with deforestation is slavery. Okay, like the laborers in the cocoa production are being asked or forced to overwork. Okay, and that is a socioeconomic socioeconomic effect of deforestation in terms of cocoa production. So they coming up with a directive that we shouldn't source our cocoa beans from deforestation. Such socioeconomic effects can also be reduced. Slavery, child labor, which can all be linked to deforestation in terms of producing cocoa. So I think one of them, as I mentioned earlier, we are preserving the environment. Other socio-economic effects like child labor, labor slavery, and other things are going to be reduced. And moreover, we are also going to see innovations, because if the global market is requesting for quality cocoa beans from Ghana, then the producers will begin to think outside the box. What are the alternatives? And doing so, we are going to see innovations in the cocoa industry. Yeah.
All right. So far, would you say that Ghana is prepared for this? Because in the response by the cocoa board CEO, the deputy CEO, he said that Ghana is prepared to meet this new requirement. And you rightly mentioned, when you go to our farms, the local farms, we have a lot of children working on the farms. Yeah. So we have this slavery and labor slavery going there, child labor going on there. Yeah. How prepared are we? Because we know that growing up, you have to help your parents on the farm. Yeah. Growing up, you would have to take on other jobs to fend for yourself, even at a younger age. Yeah. So how is Ghana really prepared to be able to meet these new requirements by the EU?
So it doesn't expect us to be fully prepared before we can start. Okay, preparation comes in several levels.
You are saying we shouldn't be fully prepared?
I'm not saying, yeah, there should be preparations.
Yes.
Okay, but as time goes on, as we strive to achieve the zero deforestation of cocoa production, it's a progressive, let me say, it's a process. So you move from process A before you can move on to step 2. So we have to begin right now. The first thing that we should be looking around is that our cocoa production, we shouldn't be cultivating virgin land, forest lands in terms of producing cocoa. We already have the depleted lands which we can actually make use of. And then for the child labor and other things, child labor, helping your parents on the farm, does in itself is not a child labor. Okay, child labor comes in when we trade off our education. Children trade off their education in the expense of working on a farm to earn income for economic benefits. That is when we can say it's a child labor. So children are supposed to help their parents out. If your parents are working on the farm, you can work with them, but we do not have to let them trade off their education to help us on the farm. And I think Cocoa Board has been doing massively well, because coming back from the cocoa growing communities, Cocoa Board is creating the awareness. Farmers are now taking their kids to the schools. So I think Ghana has started very well, and we are prepared that we can achieve that.
Okay. Yeah. When you read the story, down there, he says that the EU has a regulation, and that is that it won't accept cocoa from any country in Africa. So this is not only about Ghana. African countries are there. We know that Ghana is one of the top producing cocoa nations, with Cote d'Ivoire as well. In Africa, facing the issue of deforestation, we are doing this to ensure that cocoa production is sustainable. And also, we are also doing this to guarantee high standards and quality of cocoa beans exported to the European market. And the last one, so that's the benefit. The last one is to increase livelihoods for farmers, boost trade, and create equal opportunities by preventing labor exploitation. So I'm more interested in the increasing livelihoods for farmers. Now, recently, cocoa price was increased by a margin that's quite good and profitable for the farmers. Now, trade with the European Union happens to be one of the best, or one of the highly required standards when it comes to trade, and then it helps to improve the economic development of Ghana and African nations. If we are not to meet this requirement in terms of trade, how is it going to affect the economy?
So, we all know if Ghana or Africa is not able to meet this directive, what it means is that the European Union is going to impose strict sanctions. No import. They are not going to import majority of our produce from Ghana. And it's very funny that why are they targeting only cocoa? Because Ghana's deforestation problem does not, like, cocoa doesn't from what I know, cocoa does not necessarily contribute to most of Ghana's deforestation problem.
Actually, cocoa is one of them. We have cocoa, cattle, coffee, palm oil. You know, we have a lot of cattle that are
recently the major one is galamsey.
Yes.
So what about the mining industry? Mining is illegal mining is destroying our forest. But when we bring the gold over there, you are able to take them. That is what I am thinking, that it should be broadened to various aspects of the economy. If you said cocoa is causing deforestation, so you are not going to take our cocoa beans, but you are interested in the goods that are produced from illegal minings, and then these are causing a lot of deforestation problems and health problems in Ghana. Okay, but if Ghana is not able to meet this directive for the cocoa, Ghana will not be able to export our cocoa. So the livelihood of farmers is going to be very, very impacted.
Okay.
Because cocoa beans are not exported. Cocoa Board will not be able to pay them. You have your cocoa beans, all right, but Cocoa Board will not be able to pay our farmers. Okay. So what income are they going to depend on? So Ghana should strive as much as possible to be able to meet the directive. But on the other side too, if all African countries or all cocoa exporting countries should come together, that we are going to form a consortium. You, the consumer, we have our cocoa beans. We know that you depend on us, and that if we are not able to meet this directive, we come together, that this is what we are offering, this is the process that we are able to go. The supply chains in the European Union, like the Netherlands, the France, and other countries, there's going to be disruptions in their supply chains, and it may also affect them. So I think the possible best way we can address this issue will be through cooperation. It shouldn't be they just want to impose on African countries, but it should be like an inclusive decision, which we will all agree and then sort out.
You know, we still need wood. And these wood are going to be sourced from the forest. So what should the way forward? The government has even introduced something like a green Canada, where we plant trees across the nation. So to you, what should be the way forward?
Cutting wood is not the problem, but cutting wood without planting is the problem.
So we need to replace.
So we have to replant.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to replant.
All right, that's great. So I believe you made justice to that story. Now let's move to the second story. We are going to Senegal.
Yeah.
These are women, rural women, advocating for climate justice ahead of COP28 summit. It is going to be happening in Dubai.
Yeah.
These women are saying that the climate change is really impacting agricultural production. And when you read a story, let me read a story about that. Senegalese rural women staged a demonstration calling for climate justice on Saturday in Dakar, asserting that they continue to endure the adverse impacts of climate change. Rural women are mobilizing today because the climate crisis is at a crossroads of an environmental, health, you know what I mean, the COVID-19 pandemic, social and economic crisis, said Kadi Kamara, organizer of the march. Climate change poses significant threats to agriculture in Senegal, where only 7% of cultivated land is irrigated, rendering the country's agriculture highly reliant on rainfall. That is a key factor.
Yeah.
They are saying that, previously where we know the season for rainfall.
Yeah.
All right. So we know how to plant. We know when to plant. We know
when
that this particular season rainfall will take place.
Yeah.
The soil will be watered.
Yeah, condition for planting.
Yes, and then we will harvest at this particular season. Yeah. But now we are not going to determine when and when rain is going to come. Climate change. There's a rise in sea level, a whole lot. Now these women are saying that they have only 7% of cultivated land that's irrigated. Yeah. So that's to irrigation. That means that 93% of these farmers or of this land is rain-fed.
Yeah.
Or you could have a well or a borehole around the farm. But that's not sustainable.
Yeah, that would have been irrigation, but
yes,
rain-fed, 93%.
93%. Yeah. So they are saying that, this is Africa. We are being hit hard by the climate.
Yeah.
All right. Although we are contributing a less portion of that. What do you have to say to that?
Yes.
Ahead of that.
So, climate justice, for me, what I see or what we see in Africa is that Africans are not being dealt with fairly. Climate justice has to be equitable and fair treatment, especially when it comes to those who are vulnerable to the impact of climate change. Okay, historically, we know that Africa has contributed less to climate change, and when it comes to the solutions, Africa has to be considered. Okay, these women, it's a right. They have the right. They have all the right, because we are in our country. Climate change is a global issue, and the whole world, the whole countries, okay, the nations, all the nations in the world has to come together.
Yeah.
And then it has to be fair treatment. When it comes to the solutions, it has to be equitable, because when we are contributing less to the change, then when it comes to we are more vulnerable to it again, and we feel the impact of climate change more than the developed countries who contributed more. So they should be able to assist the African countries, the vulnerable countries, to be able to mitigate the effect. For example, adaptation. We need the human resource. We need the capacity. They have to be able to assist the African countries, the vulnerable countries, to be able to train them to be able to adapt to the change in order for us to sustain our livelihoods.
I went to a conference last Thursday.
Yeah.
At the conference, the experts were saying that we need to adapt to climate smart approaches.
Yeah.
We are in a world where climate change is evolving. I mean, we cannot do away with it.
Yeah, it has
right
come to stay for now.
Yes. So we need to adapt to climate smart approaches.
Yeah.
Like going back to organic farming. But this particular problem is a peculiar one for Senegal, because that is for the rain. So with that, what should they be doing? Should they shift their cultivation season to? I mean, maybe they can get the reports from the weather station. Should they shift it, or they should begin investing in irrigation and then tapping from water resources around the country?
Senegal getting data from the weather stations to be able to plan very well. Now, in the whole of Africa, agriculture is like lottery. You don't know when to plant and you don't know when to cut it, or you don't know when to harvest.
So
it's lottery. And you know that anything that you do based on lottery, as one man said the last time, anything that you do based on lottery, you know the outcome. Yeah. You win or lose, you get it. And Senegal, a country where they per year about 400 to 600,000 people are losing their livelihood. They are losing their sources of income due to drought and erratic rainfall. Okay, so the way forward, the thing is right now. The thing is happening. So what is the way forward? You can't just leave them. Even for them to be able to change their practices, they need the training. They have to understand. Okay. You can't just ask people to just go into something. They have to see it. They have to understand, and it has to come with research. It has to come with capacity building. So the rural communities in Senegal has to be visited. They have to be trained so that they can get the necessary skills that can help them, the conservation agriculture and other smart agricultural practices, for them to be able to embark on such journeys.
All right. So the COP28 is happening in Dubai starting November 30th. What are your expectations there?
So my expectations basically for this COP28, for me, is to see inclusion. Inclusion in every facet of discussion. That the vulnerable group, the minority group, their voices should be heard. Okay. And we've seen several COP27, COP26 meetings and everything. The industrialized countries will promise to African countries that, we are going to give this funding to you to be able to strengthen yourself in terms of just transitions, in terms of mitigating the impact of climate change. But we don't see them fulfilling such promises. African leaders will then have to go back, reminding them of such promises. So the industrialized countries, the past promises that they've promised the vulnerable countries, they should fulfill such promises. And any other new promises that we don't want the promises. We just need the fulfillment of that.
There should be justice.
Yeah, there should be justice for African and the vulnerable group.
All right. So if you are watching us, this is the Agri-News review on Agri-News TV. We're going for a short break. When we come back, we will analyze the last story. Stay tuned. Welcome to the TIA's office. Come on in and let's embark on an exciting journey together. We are excited to develop the West African Sub-Region's agricultural sector with 3 key amazing services: the financial support, technical support, and offtake support. Join us as we showcase our diverse teams, share our values of network, and give you a sneak peek into the exciting projects we are working on. Agri-News review on Agri-News TV. So we've analyzed 2 stories so far. The first one has to do with the EU setting tough terms for cocoa trade because of the deforestation alert happening in the West African sub-region as well as the African continent on the whole. And then also the second story has to do with Senegal rural women advocating for climate justice ahead of the COP28 summit. The last story has to do with Professor Mike Okwe. He's a former Speaker of Parliament. He's saying that we will continue to go to IMF, that's the International Monetary Fund, until we develop agriculture. So this was made known at the Ekwafo Hall Agri-Fest at the University of Ghana on Friday. So let's read the story. It says that the Reverend Professor Aaron Michael Quay, a former Speaker of Parliament, says the country will continue to run to the IMF for financial support until it utilizes its natural resources well and pays attention to agriculture. He said investments in the sector will give rise to giant industries that will make the country self-sufficient and reliant. Today, and I quote him, today we are at the IMF for the 17th time, and we shall continue to go to the IMF unless we make good use of the matters of the soil, the fruits of the soil naturally given to us by our God, he said. So the lecture was on the topic resilience, technology, and humanism, the past, the present, and the future of the Ghanaian farmer. The purpose of the event was to make agriculture attractive to the youth of the country to transform their lives. He said countries such as India saw the benefits of agriculture and took advantage of it and are now able to produce enough food to feed their citizens and other nationals. He said India was not worried. This is a critical or crucial place that we must pay attention to. He says India was not worried about the war in Russia and Ukraine because it did not depend on the two countries for food. Ghana, on the other hand, was seriously affected by the war due to its reliance on the two countries for food despite the vast arable lands it possessed. He called on the government to pay critical attention to the efforts of the University of Ghana through the Ekwafo Hall in whipping up the interest of the youth in agriculture and fly on that. So, Gideon, there is the former Speaker of Parliament, Mike Okwe, saying this. I mean, he has also seen the relevance of agriculture. He's saying that we have to develop the agriculture sector so that we don't run to the IMF again. This is the 17th time we are at the IMF to seek for funds to run the affairs of this country. That's his idea, or that's his perception, that if we develop the agriculture sector well, we will be able to become self-reliant, feed ourselves, export some to the international market, and become powerful, all right, when it comes to trade, like Italy and the rest, will also become powerful and be able to, depend on our own resources. He's saying this to you. What's your take on that?
So I'm actually impressed and inspired by his speech and his advice to African countries. It's to Ghana, but I see it to be for African countries, because every serious country like Ghana, every serious country which is blessed like Ghana will actually prioritize agriculture because of the untapped potentials. In developing so all that he just said is that Ghana's agriculture, Ghana's economic development, Ghana's economic sustainability hinges on agricultural development. Let's diversify the non-traditional agricultural exports. Let's expand the various value chains within the agriculture sector to employ more people, to export more. Once we export more, our trade deficit, our trade balance of payments are going to be stabilized. That is what everyone is calling for. Export. Let's diversify our export sources. And agriculture has the biggest potential. But it is not worthy noting that it is for this economic problems that we see in Ghana, which pushes Ghanaian most of the government which we've seen going back to the IMF is actually complex. It has to deal with sustainable development strategies. For us to be able to realize such dream that we are going to be independent from the IMF, that we will not go back to the IMF, there has to be that sustainable development strategies. We have to be intentional. And when we are intentional, our governance structure should also be very good. There should be transparency and there should be commitment towards agriculture. We should be intentional, and it has to. We need a committed government who will be intentional about developing the agriculture sector for Ghana's socioeconomic sustainability to be realized. So it's actually complex. So we have to get that sustainable development strategies, good governance, and then we also have to manage our resources effectively. The soils, we have to manage it effectively. The water, we have to manage it effectively, because we can't develop the agriculture sector without the water. We need the water. We have to conserve the environment also. So everything is actually important. So it's actually complex, and then I appreciate him for that.
All right. So you've been a great economist.
Yeah.
How can we develop Ghana through agriculture? In which way? In which aspects? Which factors can we bring in?
Okay. So developing Ghana through agriculture. First is we have to create the enabling environment. Okay. I don't understand why companies into agriculture production should be taxed like equally. There has to be equity. These people are creating jobs. They are helping us sustain our environment. So we have to create that sustainable environment. There has to be legal frameworks which will protect people in agriculture. The risks associated with agriculture does not even encourage a lot of people to invest in agriculture.
Are you saying they are overtaxed?
I wouldn't say they are overtaxed. I am just saying that, however, like how much they are taxing them, we have to create that enabling environment.
So reduce
the taxes so that a lot of people can venture into it. Once we get a lot of people, our legal framework should work in such a way that we will ensure that they follow due processes, they follow sustainability processes, they conserve our environment, and we diversify our exports, our agricultural exports. We shouldn't focus mainly on cocoa. We should be thinking outside the box. Ghana has good topography. Ghana has the good climate and other things. We should make use of that to diversify, go into vegetable production, go into fruit production. Any other thing that the European Union, the Americans demand, we should be able to produce on large scale, and then we should also be able to produce at the lowest cost. That is where the taxing comes in, so that our people should be able to export more and our country will be better off.
What do you have to say with industrialization? Most of the politicians who are taking power, the NPP, the NDC, and all that, saying that industrialization is the key to developing the agriculture sector.
Yeah.
So that we can set factories across the nation, across Africa, so we can process more of our crops to reduce post-harvest losses, export more into the international market.
Yeah.
So what do you have to say with respect to industrialization?
There is no doubt about what technology can do in the agriculture sector. There is no doubt. Okay. So we have to address ourselves for industrialization. We have to put in the necessary things that must be done, okay, before we can go into industrialization. When we go into industrialization without people, without the capacity which will be working in the companies, what are we doing? So we should research and research and innovation is actually important. We should research, train, build our capacity so that we can have the manpower to be at the industries, to be at the companies, to be able to operate the technologies, for us to be able to add value to our products.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So finally, what is your advice for farmers? Because this week we are celebrating the Farmers' Day.
Yeah.
We are awarding outstanding personalities in the farming business, agribusiness. It's our foundation, or our economy is primarily based on agriculture.
Yeah.
So what do you have for farmers out there?
For farmers out there, I will tell them that the first is Ayuku for